My name is Arlene Sheckett, and I'm speaking to you from my Kingston, New York studio in the month of August 2020. And I'm so pleased that the sculpture that I made a couple of years ago, Tilted Channel, is currently in Menominee Valley for you to enjoy. Tilted Channel was is an outgrowth of work that I made at the Meissen porcelain factory outside of Dresden in Germany, the first place where porcelain in the West was developed in 1710. So I worked at that factory from 2012 to 2013 over a period of 2 years. And during the time I was working in the factory, I really, first of all, loved being in a factory and loved learning about industrial processes from the ground up. And I also had access to their 18th century molds and methods. And so one of the things I was particularly interested in was the process of casting porcelain, which I had really not done. And in order to do that, one uses channels or sprues through which the liquid porcelain flows into plastic molds. And those were normally thrown out. I used a lot of things in making sculptures there that were ordinarily thrown out by the factory. So I made little sculptures or medium-sized sculptures of things using those parts, and then later actually took that imagery of those channels or sprues, which is the technical term, to the Kohler factory right outside of Milwaukee, Sheboygan, where I made that imagery much, much larger, but in another factory. So it was really, I wanted to make this link between the origins of porcelain and then porcelain in America in a sink and toilet bowl factory where I greatly enlarged the imagery, but kept a lot of the roots of that. So I have the channels, which are the tree-like form, which I loved how those channels really are like trees. They function like trees in terms of being, arteries through which liquid flows, and to having these curls or curvaceous forms at the end, which are really references to the teacup handles that at the porcelain factory were in Germany were being made, but they also then became references to tools in the Kohler factory, where they were later enlarged and developed. In terms of it being tilted, I love to have things that have a kind of precarity about them, something that's off balance, something that has a sense of immediacy, of being caught in time, and addresses the unknown in our lives, which has suddenly become more and more precarity and the unknown and things being off balance, I think have always been the subtext of our lives, but in this time, we're learning to all adjust and accept that as quite a substantial reality. There is a form a bell-like form, upon which the channels balance seem like it's slipping off of. And that bell-like form, it has indentations that I carved into the cast iron. Those carved indentations were really references to the fact that that form was cast from, originally was inspired by the form of a thimble that was made at the porcelain factory in Germany. So that was a tiny little thimble that would go on your finger when you were sewing, becomes this big bell-like form, resounding in the cast iron. And also in cast iron, there's a lot of gender references that we have when we think about a thimble and sewing as a female activity. But when we see this muscular cast iron bell-like form, it has many more traditional, maybe male references. So combining that those gender references and having a lot of slippage between them is something I was really interested in. I love the idea that people will experience this artwork as they're riding past quickly or as they're walking past slowly. And the nature of sculpture is that one can see it differently in different light. It's three-dimensional. It's a three-dimensional object. It's a three-dimensional experience. And so every day it will look a little different depending upon how one views it and from which angle one views it, which is why one side is yellow, for instance, and another side is black. And at certain angles, it hides that combination of colors. I feel like it's found its perfect spot, and I am a big fan of having art in places where people will see it, experience it, but they haven't necessarily gone to those places to look for art. And yet whoever set this up has offered it as a gift, and I'm very pleased to be part of that